the Bank concept is, by this point, deeply ingrained in WWE. The first match of its type took place all the way back at WrestleMania 21 in 2005, and in the years since has grown to become its own pay-per-view event, with Raw, SmackDown, and women's title match briefcases up for grabs. Despite being so well established, Money in the Bank still has the capacity to surprise, whether it's with a return, shocking match winner, or unforeseen cash-in. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 biggest Money in the Bank surprises. Join us. Number 10, the champ is back. We start with the most recent Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which was headlined by Roman Reigns defending his Universal title against Edge. The two had a barnstorming match full of thrilling action and sports entertainment shenanigans before the head of the table put away the rated R superstar to draw a line under their feud. The result wasn't especially surprising, but the post-match scene was, as John Cena stormed out to a thunderous ovation, oh how times change, to confront his successor. The return of Cena, who hadn't been seen in WWE since his bizarre Firefly Funhouse match with Bray Wyatt at the pandemic-affected WrestleMania 36, had been rumoured beforehand, but nobody knew where or how exactly he was going to show up. Seeing the Hollywood star come out at the conclusion of the pay-per-view just as it looked like it was about to go off air caught many off guard. Cena had previously had a Money in the Bank surprise when he became the first person to fail to cash in the contract against CM Punk at 2012's Raw 1000. Number 9, stop, swagger time. The last time the Money in the Bank ladder match would appear on a WrestleMania card before getting its own standalone pay-per-view was at WrestleMania 26 in 2010. It was a loaded field with potential winners including Kane, Christian, and the bookies' favourite Drew McIntyre. The chosen one wasn't, well, the chosen one though, but rather ECW's Jack Swagger, who was certainly a wrestler on the rise but still something of a surprising choice for winner. The All-American American tried to cash in the next night on Raw, only to be run off by WWE Champion John Cena, but undeterred showed up a few nights later on SmackDown and successfully cashed in on World Heavyweight Champion Chris Jericho. Though Swagger cashing in wasn't too shocking, the speed with which he did so was. Previous briefcase holders had waited for months before doing the deed, while the former ECW champion couldn't do it fast enough. Number 8, Matt Hardy returns. Had Matt Hardy not gone down with a serious knee injury in November of 2007, he likely would have been a participant in WrestleMania 24's Money in the Bank ladder match. Hardy had been a competitor in the same match at WrestleMania in 2006 and 7, but he would have to sit this one out as he recovered from surgery. In order to write him out of storylines, WWE had Hardy's enemy-cum-reluctant partner MVP attack him, followed by another attack courtesy of Randy Orton sometime later. Making his grand return to thwart the man who had originally put him on the shelf, Hardy ran out from the crowd during the 4th ever Money in the Bank ladder match and prevented MVP from snatching the briefcase by hitting him with a huge twist of fate off the top of the ladder. It was a great, surprising return that got a hell of a pop from the crowd and set up a spring series between the two over the United States title. Number 7, the intellectual failure of the masses. By the summer of 2013, the intellectual savior of the masses was enjoying a great run with Rhodes Scholars tag partner Cody Rhodes. Both men found themselves vying for the World Heavyweight Championship's Money in the Bank briefcase, however, and Sandow showed no mercy in usurping Rhodes in order to retrieve it. The team split, Cody won their big grudge match at SummerSlam, and then Damian's momentum stalled. But was it just a classic case of misdirection, fans wondered, a way to cool him off before unleashing him and his guaranteed title shot on the world? No. Sandow, having not appeared on the 3 pay-per-views since SummerSlam, came out on Raw the day after Hell in a Cell and challenged new World Heavyweight Champion John Cena to a match. He destroyed Big Match John's left arm and looked competitive, but ultimately succumbed to defeat, marking only the 2nd time the Money in the Bank briefcase holder had failed to successfully cash in. Sandow has since said that the cash-in was hot-shotted as WWE felt like they needed a boost in the ratings as they were going up against the World Series and Monday Night Football, so it was a surprise to him as well as us. Number 6, a beastly troll job. The Money in the Bank ladder matches are typically spectacular affairs where, even though there can only be one winner, multiple performers usually come out of them better than they went in, grasping the opportunity to shine in unique surroundings. Think, for example, of the likes of Kofi Kingston and Evan Bourne, who performed in multiple such matches and, while never winning, did things to steal the show and secured their place on the highlight reel for years to come. 2019's Interbrand Men's Money in the Bank ladder match was shaping up to be a similar affair, as exciting superstars like Ali, Andrade, Finn Balor and Ricochet dazzled, while potential winners Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin did their thing. Nobody was talking about any of the 7 athletes risking life and limb when the show was over though, because Brock Lesnar sauntered out as a kayfabe-injured Sami Zayn's unnamed replacement, swatted Ali away and grabbed the prize. The Beast hadn't been around since losing his own title to Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, and though he was due back any day, his presence and actions here were a shocker. Number 5. Fighting in Vince's office. WWE had to get very creative when it came to Money in the Bank 2020 as the world reeled from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and wrestling continued to take place behind closed doors. For the pay-per-view special, the company devised a new concept in keeping with the cinematic wrestling that was necessarily in vogue at the time. Instead of being a standard ladder match in an empty warehouse, the competitors in the men's and women's Money in the Bank matches would have to somehow get to the roof of Titan Towers, WWE's headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, where they would find a ring with a briefcase suspended above it. Full of balmy moments, including cameos from John Laurinaitis, Brother Love, and the most half-assed doink you've ever seen, as well as Rey Mysterio getting thrown to his death from the rooftop, the strangest moment in an incredibly strange match was when AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan accidentally crashed into Vince McMahon's office. D. Bryan the Phenomenal One continued to brawl with a massive dinosaur skull in the background until they caught the glare of the chairman and subsequently beat their hasty retreats. Vince sanitized his hands as they left. Number 4. The Big Red Cash-In Machine. 2010 saw the emergence of Money in the Bank as a standalone pay-per-view concept, the first event featuring namesake matches for both the Raw and SmackDown brands, as well as other major championship showdowns. In the opener, Kane beat Christian, Big Show, Cody Rhodes, Matt Hardy, Drew McIntyre, Kofi Kingston and Dolph Ziggler to retrieve the blue briefcase. Where Jack Swagger had surprised everyone a few months earlier by waiting mere days to cash in on Chris Jericho, Kane took things a step further by sauntering out after World Heavyweight Champion Rey Mysterio's successful defense against Swagger just a few matches later. The same night cash-in, or attempted cash-in, was done a lot over the following years, but it was genuinely surprising at the time. The Big Red Machine beat Mysterio in less than a minute to become a world champion for only the second time in his long and illustrious career. Sorry WWE CW fans, but well, you know. Number 3. The Devilish Advocates. Though Paul Heyman turning on CM Punk was somewhat inevitable, the manner in which it happened certainly caught WWE fans by surprise. They had teased dissension since Punk's comeback at Payback, which came a couple of months after Punk, accompanied by Heyman, lost to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 29. While the straight-edge superstar and his manager had been one of the top heel acts in the company for the better part of a year, Punk was beloved and came back as a babyface, which is where the trouble began. With a natural conclusion being Punk going up against Heyman's other charge, Brock Lesnar, the split was bound to happen, but could and should have been drawn out until the Royal Rumble, or perhaps even WrestleMania. Instead, WWE rushed things, quelle surprise, and had Heyman turn on Punk at Money in the Bank, preventing him from climbing the ladder and retrieving the prize above before slamming a ladder right into his head for good measure. It had been coming, yes, but it still happened sooner than most thought, and judging by the reaction, certainly caught those in the arena off guard that night. Number 2, the Ultimate Opportunist. The third winner of the Money in the Bank ladder match was Ken Kennedy, a wrestler on the ascendancy that more than a few believed could be the next star on the level of Steve Austin, due to his charisma and mic skills. It didn't quite turn out that way, to say the least, but WWE were at one point all in on Kennedy, whose career was hampered by injuries, bad timing, and worse luck. Them giving him the briefcase at WrestleMania 23 was an indication that they had big plans for him, but those plans were scuppered when Kennedy went down with yet another injury less than 2 months later. Before he could even think about cashing in, Ken suffered what was initially believed to be a triceps tear, which would require surgery and an 8-month layoff. Kennedy would likely have beaten World Heavyweight Champion The Undertaker, since the dead man was also injured around that time. However, WWE instead booked Raw's Edge to beat Kennedy for the briefcase in a hastily arranged match before showing up on the next episode of SmackDown and spearing a knackered Taker after his cage match draw with Batista to win the title in a fashion very similar to his cash-in on John Cena at New Year's Revolution 2006. Number 1. Rollins Mania. We'd seen cash-ins take place on Raw, SmackDown, and even in the end and after the main events of major pay-per-views. But we hadn't seen anyone try to redeem their guaranteed world title shot on the grandest stage until Seth Rollins sprinted out at WrestleMania 31 as Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar were beating the hell out of each other, turning the bout into a triple threat. The Architect had been in possession of the briefcase for a while and had teased cashing in previously, but nobody rightly expected him to gatecrash the main event of the biggest show of the year, especially as it was still in progress. Expectations were lessened after Rollins succumbed to Randy Orton and his show-stealing RKO earlier in the night too. But that is what Rollins did, pinning the big dog after rocking his former Shield teammate and the next big thing to end the show on a thrilling note.